What if the most prolific serial killer in American history didn't look like a monster, but instead looked like the charming, handsome law student sitting next to you in class? A man who weaponized vulnerability to lure dozens of young women to their deaths. In the mid-1970s, Theodore Robert Bundy shattered the public's understanding of violent criminals. He didn't lurk in dark alleyways wearing a mask. Instead, he operated in broad daylight, smiling politely and asking for help. Born Theodore Robert Cowell in November 1946, Bundy possessed an articulate charm and an air of educated respectability that disarmed everyone he encountered. But beneath that carefully constructed exterior was a depraved predator who would claim at least 30 confirmed victims across 7 different states between 1974 and 1978, with true estimates reaching far higher. Bundy's primary weapon was not just a crowbar or a lead pipe, but human empathy. He developed a chilling modus operandi known as the injured gentleman ruse. Bundy would wrap his arm in a fake plaster cast, carry his arm in a sling, or walk on crutches around college campuses, public parks, and grocery store parking lots. He would politely approach young college women, asking if they could assist an injured man with carrying books, groceries, or loading equipment onto his vehicle. When his victims stepped over to his vehicle, a tan 1968 Volkswagen Beetle, they were walking directly into a death trap. Bundy had physically modified the vehicle by completely removing the front passenger seat. Once he bludgeoned or incapacitated a victim, he would lay her body flat on the floorboards, concealing her completely below the window line so that passing motorists saw only an ordinary, solitary driver. His spree began tearing through Washington and Oregon in 1974, taking young women like Linda Ann Healy, Donna Gail Manson, Susan Rancourt, and Brenda Ball. The sheer audacity of his methods reached a terrifying peak on July 14, 1974, at Lake Sammamish State Park, where he abducted 2 women, Janice Oat and Denise Nosland, in broad daylight within 4 hours of each other, openly introducing himself to witnesses as Ted. By the fall of 1974, the Pacific Northwest was on high alert, prompting Bundy to shift his hunting grounds east to Utah and Colorado, under the cover of enrolling in law school at the University of Utah. As he integrated into the Salt Lake Valley, the bodies of young women like Melissa Smith and Laura Ain began appearing in rural areas, alongside Karen Campbell and Colorado ski resorts. In Utah, Bundy adapted his predatory tactics, creating the Officer Roseland persona. Wearing polished clothes and carrying a fake badge, he would approach women in public spaces, claiming their parked vehicles had been broken into, and insisting they accompany him in his patrol car to file an official police report. On the evening of November 8, 1974, 18-year-old Carol Durant was shopping at a suburban mall in Murray, Utah, when Bundy approached her posing as Officer Roseland. Believing he was a legitimate undercover officer, Durant agreed to get into his vehicle. But as Bundy drove down dark, unfamiliar streets, Durant realized something was terribly wrong. Bundy suddenly pulled over, pulled out a gun, and attempted to snap handcuffs onto her wrists. In the tight confines of the car, Durant fought back with extraordinary bravery. As Bundy locked one cuff onto her wrist, she clawed at his face, kicked open the passenger door, and broke free into the roadway, flagging down a passing vehicle. Carol Durant survived, becoming the vital living witness whose memory of that face would eventually dismantle Bundy's empire of deception. Bundy's initial capture arrived on August 16, 1975, thanks to the vigilance of Utah Highway Patrol Sergeant Bob Hayward. Sergeant Hayward spotted Bundy's tan Volkswagen Beetle cruising slowly through a suburban neighborhood in the dead of night with its headlights turned off. When Hayward initiated a traffic stop and searched the vehicle, he uncovered a terrifying toolkit: a crowbar, a ski mask, a pantyhose mask, an ice pick, handcuffs, and strips of torn bedsheets. In 1976, Carol Durant took the stand and pointed directly at Bundy, securing his conviction for aggravated kidnapping and landing him a prison sentence of 1 to 15 years. While serving his kidnapping sentence in Utah, authorities began connecting the physical evidence in Bundy's car to unsolved homicides in Colorado, leading to his extradition to face murder charges for the death of Karen Campbell. Bundy, arrogant and convinced of his intellectual superiority, exercised his legal right to act as his own attorney. This strategic move granted him access to the courthouse law library and allowed him to appear in court without handcuffs or leg irons. On June 7, 1977, during a pre-trial hearing recess at the Pitkin County Courthouse in Aspen, Colorado, Bundy saw his opening. While left unattended in the second-floor law library, he walked over to an open window and leaped 2 stories to the ground below. He fled into the rugged Aspen Mountains, evading a massive search party for 6 days before being recaptured after stealing a vehicle. Back in custody at the Garfield County Jail in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, Bundy immediately began engineering a far more calculated and dangerous escape. Over several months, Bundy deliberately starved himself, shedding more than 35 pounds from his frame. Using a smuggled hacksaw blade, he spent weeks painstakingly cutting a square opening through the ceiling around the light fixture in his cell. On the night of December 30, 1977, while the jail staff was operating on a skeletal holiday schedule, Bundy made his move. He squeezed his emaciated body up through the ceiling opening and crawled through the dark crawl space directly into the jailer's private apartment. Finding the apartment empty, Bundy quietly changed into street clothes, walked out the front door, and vanished into the freezing Colorado night. By the time jail guards discovered his bed was stuffed with books and pillows the following afternoon, Bundy had already boarded a bus, traveled across the country, and arrived in Tallahassee, Florida, under the alias Chris Hagen. Living in a cheap rooming house near Florida State University under his assumed identity, Bundy was broke, desperate, and running out of time. In the early morning hours of January 15, 1978, his unchecked rage culminated in one of the most horrific crimes in modern history, the Chi Omega Sorority House Massacre. Around 3 a.m., Bundy slipped inside the unlocked back door of the sorority house on the FSU campus. Armed with an oak log, he moved through the darkened hallway from room to room, unleashing absolute carnage on sleeping young women in under 15 minutes. He bludgeoned and strangled 21-year-old Margaret Bowman and 20-year-old Lisa Levy in their beds, killing both women. He then attacked Kathy Kleiner and Karen Chandler, leaving them severely injured before the headlights of an arriving roommate frightened him away. Fleeing down the street, Bundy broke into a nearby duplex and violently assaulted another student, Cheryl Thomas, leaving her critically wounded. Less than a month later, on February 9, 1978, Bundy struck for the final time. In Lake City, Florida, he abducted 12-year-old Kimberly Diane Leach from the grounds of her middle school. He murdered the young girl and concealed her body in a wooded area near Suwannee River State Park. But Bundy's reign of terror was nearing its end. On February 15, 1978, Pensacola police officer David Lee noticed a suspicious orange Volkswagen Beetle driving down the street. A registration check revealed the vehicle was stolen. When Officer Lee initiated the stop, Bundy resisted violently, kicking the officer's legs and fighting for his gun. After a fierce physical struggle in the street, Officer Lee subdued the fugitive, placing Ted Bundy under permanent arrest. Because forensic DNA profiling did not exist in the late 1970s, the state of Florida had to rely on groundbreaking, pioneering forensic techniques to secure a conviction against Ted Bundy. The centerpiece of the prosecution's physical case came from the autopsy of Chi Omega victim Lisa Levy. Forensic pathologist Dr. Peter Lipkovich had carefully photographed and preserved a distinct, deep human bite mark left by the killer on Levy's left buttock. Renowned forensic odontologists Dr. Richard Souveron and Dr. Lowell Levine took dental impressions of Bundy's teeth, revealing uniquely misaligned crooked lower incisors and chipped enamel. By creating transparent photographic overlays of Bundy's teeth and placing them directly over the life-sized photos of the bite mark on Levy's body, the experts demonstrated an undeniable, unique match to the jury. The forensic evidence continued to mount. Microscopic fiber analysis revealed rare red acrylic fibers inside the stolen van Bundy had driven in Lake City, which microscopically matched the clothing worn by 12-year-old Kimberly Leach. Furthermore, FBI laboratory analysis matched hair strands found inside Bundy's 1968 Volkswagen Beetle to the microscopic structure of hair from earlier victims, Karen Campbell and Melissa Smith. The 1979 Chi Omega trial in Miami, presided over by Judge Edward Cowart, made history as the first nationally televised murder trial in the United States. Bundy turned the proceedings into a bizarre media circus, acting as his own co-counsel, cross-examining witnesses, and performing dramatic stunts for the cameras. During the 1980 penalty phase for the murder of Kimberly Leach, Bundy exploited an obscure Florida statute by declaring himself married to witness Carol Ann Boone in open court while she was on the witness stand under oath. Despite his theatrical attempts to derail the justice system, the juries were unmoved, and Bundy received 3 separate death sentences across his Florida trials. Following his convictions, Ted Bundy spent nearly a decade on Florida's death row, utilizing endless legal appeals to delay his inevitable execution. As his final warrants were signed in January 1989 and his legal options completely ran out, Bundy made a desperate attempt to buy more time. He offered to confess to unsolved homicides in exchange for a stay of execution, sitting down for tape-recorded interviews with FBI Special Agent Bill Hagmaier from the Behavioral Analysis Unit and Washington State Detective Robert Keppel. In these chilling final tapes, Bundy finally stripped away his mask. He confessed to 30 murders, detailing the exact locations where he had buried severed skulls and victims' remains across Taylor Mountain in Washington and throughout the western states. But the state of Florida refused to delay justice any longer. On the morning of January 24, 1989, 42-year-old Theodore Robert Bundy was led into the execution chamber at Florida State Prison in Stark. He was strapped into Florida's electric chair, known as Old Sparky. At 7:16 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Bundy was pronounced dead. Outside the prison gates, hundreds of citizens, students, and reporters gathered, cheering and setting off fireworks as the hearse departed. The legacy of Ted Bundy remains a defining case study in criminal psychology and forensic science. At his sentencing in 1979, Judge Edward Cowart delivered a haunting summary of Bundy's wasted potential. "Take care of yourself, young man. I say that to you sincerely, 'cause I have no animosity toward you. I want you to know that. But you'd have made a good lawyer, and I'd have loved to have you practice in front of me. But you went another way, partner." Bundy's story remains a permanent reminder that the most dangerous monsters are often the ones hiding behind a charming smile. If you found this deep dive into the legal and psychological layers of this case meaningful, please subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot. Don't forget to hit the like button if you appreciate the effort that goes into uncovering these real-life cases. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and I'll see you in the next video.